Welcome to another episode of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker on this December 22nd, 2021, very much nearing the end of a very exciting year that we've had. And we have a couple of incredibly interesting guests that we're going to have on today. Both of them are legitimate uh, doctors of philosophy. That is Dr. Kris Gowen and Dr. Lauren Lichty. Both of them are sex educators, and they are going to be talking to us about their podcast, Before You Swipe, at some point. And they may also join us later for helping us with our client. I saw Mommy Pegging Santa Claus. That is our client for today. And God
It's
knows.
part of the holiday season.
Yes,
It is.
where that's going to
The
be
best
going.
part.
Behold, trapped in a hellscape of their own invention, socially unaware old white men bound by the pretense of being fake lawyers yet knowing no law, no exquisite Latin terminology, they are inexplicably compelled to quibble over minutia, squabble over triflings, and bicker like those who value their backyards far too highly without even knowing the difference between an easement and an alleyway. At this very moment, you have entered the heart of the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Let's get started.
Brendan, if you could tell us who our sponsor is for today, that'd be awesome.
Well, certainly. So tonight, the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker are proudly brought to you by White Trash Cruise Lines. Isn't it time you got your freak back on? Launching from Cootersville Beach here in Florida, just 10 miles south of the lovely VD Islands, your ultimate floating spring break went too long and everyone is over 50 now party is set to sail. Nana's got the trailer on lockdown, the kids are with that lonely divorced neighbor, and you and Brandy are ready to make it or break it. White Trash Cruise Lines has it all. Midget wrestling, catfish dancing, different kiddie pools filled with jello, liquor, and oh, damn, is that piss? And let's not forget the world famous Meth Off, where some of the greatest cookers the South has to offer face off in a sudden death competition judged by Gary Busey, Charlie Sheen, and the mummified corpse of Spud McKenzie. What are you waiting for? There are more diseases to be caught than scupper trout. And if fishing ain't your thing, you can relax, pour yourself a natty ice, and just watch the dog fight. White Trash Cruise Lines. You'll be grinning like a possum shitting peach seeds.
That's a great motto for a company, any company.
I'm
I wish
telling
that
you.
was Chevrolet's new
So this
motto.
was a sponsor that we had when we were part of the Indie Pods United Summit. Is that correct? I think
That is correct. This is a
Right, 'cause-
returning sponsor. They did so well the last time.
and they
came
still
back.
can't seem to figure out that they're peach pits and not peach seeds. I don't know why. They just because they're white trash, right?
That's your sort of, Portland privilege talking. We call them peach seeds down here. You call them whatever you want.
I think the world calls them peach pits. The world that speaks English, anyway, calls them pits as opposed to seeds.
They are a seed.
Just like you Portlandians call wild, crazy anarchists. You call them protesters, peaceful protesters.
Says the Portlander.
Says the communist.
Well, that too.
I don't know. It looks more like Assassin's Creed or something.
It's true. He is mocked up as the assassin again this week.
I'm gonna start
Okay.
singing the Internationale if we don't start doing this podcast.
What is
Oh,
the
yeah.
Internationale, Greg?
It's the Russian commie. It's the commie theme. Love
Yeah?
theme from commie land.
Love theme from is that a TV show?
No, the Internationale. That's what all the early communists. That was like their national anthem.
Do you know how any of it goes? Can
Not
you, like,
really. It
do
was
a
in that movie
couple of
Reds with
bars?
Warren Beatty, and I forgot.
You
Oh,
called
okay.
him his bluff, Matt.
I know, I do
I
it a
know.
lot, unfortunately, because I get interested in what he's talking about, and then he's got no more. He's just very surface. He's incredibly shallow. Speaking of shallow, I'll be talking now. So I want to introduce our guests once again. So we have Dr. Kris Gowen, Dr. Lauren Lichty. Kris is located in Toronto, Canada, and Dr. Lauren is in Chicago. And Dr. Lauren is a professor of, I believe, interdisciplinary studies at the University of Washington and the University of Chicago. So, no?
Not claiming UFC. No,
Oh.
only University of Washington.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason you were at University of Chicago, like Urbana-Champaign or something.
That's where I did my undergrad. So
Oh, okay.
Connection.
My apologies.
That's all right.
Apparently horrible research. So why don't you guys go ahead, tell us a bit about Before You Swipe Your Podcast, and just so everybody out there in podcast land knows, it's the capital B as in boy, the letter U, and then swipe, the word, as in Dora the Explorer,
No.
swiper, no swiping.
Did you
You're
forget the
close.
number 4?
Yeah, the letter B.
BU swipe.
Yeah.
Well,
BU
BU, but I don't have to like say what the number 4.
The letter B, the number 4, the letter U,
All
swipe.
right, fine.
Because we would really like to get you before you swipe. Our goal is to support you before.
So then it's actually UB4 swipe.
Yeah, there you go.
UB4 you swipe.
Before you
UB40?
swipe.
UB40, red wine.
You
I
can
think you
listen
guys
to
should
that
change the
while-
name. You guys should change the name of your podcast to Bus Swipe.
Or we can have that.
Swipe.
See if we can have that right.
Bus swipe?
That's what you spelled, Matt.
Yeah,
That's what you spelled. You
B-U-S.
forgot the 4.
Swipe.
Okay.
I don't want to listen to a podcast about bus swiping. I don't even know what that is.
It's
but-
like
More-
it's how to steal buses.
Yes.
I was thinking more bus wipe.
Wiping buses.
And you're
People wiping
cleaning,
buses.
yeah, people cleaning up buses. I mean, there could be an interesting conversation about things left behind on buses. Actually, I'd maybe listen to that podcast.
I
Yeah.
suppose.
Right. Peanuts.
I have found weird
Peach
stuff on a bus.
seeds.
People leave bags behind, headphones, phones, wallets.
I left my favorite hat on the bus once. It was very
I
sad.
left my
Did
favorite
they
scarf.
know? Did they know it was your favorite when you left it?
I don't know.
No.
Probably
I bet
not.
the person who found it was like,
person.
somebody loves this, but I'm taking it.
Exactly.
It belongs to me. This is
I
not
love
my
my-
favorite
I-
hat.
I left my wallet on the bus once, and I didn't even care about losing my wallet. It was that night I was going to see the Guided by Voices reunion, and the ticket was in there. I was headed to the concert, and then I was like, "Fuck!" Like I didn't even care about losing my wallet, and my ID, and the money. I just couldn't go to the show. I was just like, "No."
So you
That
weren't
was
like
the
guided
worst.
by voices. You're guided by moronity. Which is
Well,
a
no,
new
it was
word.
tight pants. I was wearing tight pants, and the wallet fell out.
You were
which is
guided by
snug.
tight pants.
Yeah, guided by tight pants.
All right,
Slacks,
then.
tight slacks.
What kind of music do they sing?
Indie. I don't know.
Indie.
Great.
Okay.
Great
Well,
music.
all right. So I've obviously butchered the name of their podcast. So, guys, why don't you go ahead
Yeah.
and tell us
Lauren,
about
take it
what
away.
you do.
Well, so the podcast, it's, us, a couple middle-aged sex nerds, and we date as people not presently in monogamous committed relationships. And so we found ourselves seeing bizarre profiles and being like, hey man, have you seen this? Like, what the fuck? I'm sending things to each other. And then we realized this is pretty funny as we were talking about it. And so then we would also offer advice. We'd be like chatting about, we're like, gosh, if only they had. And so that turned into the basic logic of the podcast. We
If
sent
they
each
had
other
only
profiles.
like played bagpipes? What do you mean if they only
If,
had-
Shower.
if they had only changed this feature, if they had
Oh.
only used a better photo or had a different angle, or if they'd changed their content, and so
If they only had soap and
I mean,
basic grooming
sometimes
materials.
sometimes it's irredeemable, but if only they were a different person.
Right.
Sometimes
Yeah, there is that.
if they had a different personality.
if only
So
they
we
hadn't made
have-
a scarf out of
We've
our nose hair.
definitely given praise to good profiles
Oh, yeah.
that are people that we would never swipe right on. Like
The
because
red,
they're
the red pill person. The red
right,
pill.
the red pill person. So this
W-
person
wait,
who was
We could explain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Please do.
The red pill person? Is that
Yeah.
fish oil thing? I see it advertised. There's like a fish oil red pill. Not that one.
This is appropriate because the new Matrix movie came out today. This is a plug
That's right.
for the Matrix. I hope you get money. So this is like how conservatives like to claim the Matrix, and they're like, I took the red pill, and it's like I got my awakening by taking the red pill, and that's why I can see through the Matrix. And that the Democrats are what is it that they claim? They like drink blood and are lizard people or something. Anyway, and so they say they took the red pill.
Brendan is the resident expert on the lizard people.
Yeah, there's blood drinking. There's shape-shifting lizards.
Yeah.
The Queen of England, Boxcar Willie, if he's still alive, I'm not sure. They're all involved. And
baby eating. Lots of baby eating, I think. Right?
So yeah. Woman.
So it was a woman who, actually referenced taking
the red pill. And so I think had a MAGA hat on, and also but owned like, I only want a tough man. Like, I don't want a man with feelings. I don't want a man to like be like this. Like, I drink whiskey. I like wrestling, and I want a real man. And I've taken the red pill, and fuck off anybody else. And so it was a great profile, and the pictures were really like flattering.
Except I was so confused that she was goth. She was like gothy. I mean, it was just, I never got over. She was gothy and a waif. Yeah, she was like talking all tough, like she was gonna kick your ass. And I'm like, okay, I'm small, but I could fucking take this person, like really. So I felt like she didn't quite deliver. Anyway, this is basically the kind of conversations we have on our podcast.
So she got you angry enough that you decided you would kick her ass, is what you're saying. Like you got so pissed off, like, I'm coming after this woman.
I mean,
I just want to know, was she lizard curious? Was she open to a lizard relationship? Or
well,
was it strictly
in order for us to have found her, she was open to all genders. No.
The way she came to us was through someone I was dating. So this is one of the fun things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So she was het. All right.
So wait,
whatever.
Lauren was dating a lizard person?
No. I was dating someone else who was also on the dating apps who knew about our podcast. And so they were on their dating app, and this dude saw this woman's profile and was like, holy shit, you've got to review this profile. Like the red pill made it to
Tinder.
The
person you were dating was mammalian.
They were mammalian.
Okay, good.
And also male identified.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not a sea creature of any kind.
Not a sea creature.
Okay.
There was no.
Do they live in a lagoon at least?
Anyone has
they live near a lagoon, actually.
The tentacle people have their own dating app. It's a totally different thing because
I thought the tentacle people were all Japanese.
That's racist.
Oh.
That was in terms of reference. I have not seen any reference to tentacle porn on any dating profile yet.
We have seen that scary, God, what was that? That was like Thumper with the nose and the hammer.
Oh, yeah.
That was some shit.
Yeah, the person's profile was a picture of a sort of an Alice in Wonderland drawing with the Alice had like an axe behind her back, and there was like this little Thumper looking all like expectant and stuff like that.
But with a nose that looked like a hard-on too.
Thumper the
rabbit? Yeah, the nose that looked like a hard-on. Yeah, so
the rabbit.
Wow, that's
wouldn't you want to swipe left, right for that person? Just out of curiosity, wouldn't you want to meet them?
Sometimes.
Greg, you're my people. I love swiping right on really weird profiles. There was someone called Wizard Cat, and it was all pictures of cats with lasers and hats, and that was it. And their whole profile was written, or maybe it was just that when we messaged, it was all in Old English. It was fucking great. We messaged for like 4 months, and when I tried to get them to meet me, they ghosted me. I was like, damn it, but I want to know who's behind Wizard Cat.
It was obviously Geoffrey Chaucer.
Yes.
So it's all in Old English. This is the world of modern dating. Now, I haven't done any dating in about 13 years. Wow. So I know that things have changed a lot, but back then I was doing dating like on Craigslist, and I think Plenty of Fish was another one.
That's called prostitution.
I was going to say, I don't think Craigslist is a dating app or ever was, Matt. I think you were doing it wrong.
No. At the time, they had men seeking women
like
seeking
a back
men.
page kind of a
situation.
Yeah. No, but I think that's all gone from Craigslist now. I think they got rid of all of that stuff. So I don't know if that still exists anymore. Maybe, or it got replaced by Tinder and the other apps. And I've heard you guys talk about on your podcast something called Hinge and Bumble or something like that. What are those?
So they're just other dating apps. Bumble is unique in that it is in male-female relationships. The female can take the lead on swiping and instigating contact. So that's Bumble's shtick.
Huh? Wait. I don't quite understand that. What do you mean the woman can take the lead on
Has
Can anybody
to. So in
take the
other
lead?
words, no. So in other words, so we're going to pretend it's a male-female dynamic for this particular exercise. And so if so me as a female, if I'm only looking for men and we both swipe right on each other and it's a match, I would have to be the one to instigate the conversation. The guy
So
could not
basically,
instigate the conversation.
Dudes can't send unsolicited dick pics until
Right.
after we sent one message at least.
Exactly.
That seems like a reasonable, you know.
It was
terms
sort of how
conditions.
to give that sense. So that's where Bumble is a little bit unique. And Hinge
Wait, Kris,
is,
before you move on, have you ever tested? Do we know what happens if it's two femme-identified people? Like
either one can
message?
instigate, because that
then-
happens to me as well.
Probably
So
whoever has the deeper voice.
Right.
which would
Has to
probably be me, is usually the
Okay.
case. So then I get to take the
Sultry
lead.
voice.
Yeah.
And then in Hinge is more photo driven. It does have text, but you have to have a minimum of a certain amount of pictures. And it also, the pictures are driven by prompts that are sort of canned prompts
They're
that you can
so weird.
use to then have and then you can have a picture with it. So it's like caption, instead of caption this photo, it's like photo this caption, I guess.
It's super
And that one skews really young. So yeah, Lauren and I have an episode. I mean, but both of us have been, both of us are or older, and yet a lot of 20 somethings will try to say, oh, and that's the other thing with Hinge is Hinge, who likes you before. So you can like someone first, but like in my Hinge queue, there's like, oh, these 10 people like you. And so you can kind of look at them first.
Yeah.
which is not
So
true.
it's a little different.
Are you ever
Which
like
is not true
totally
for
put
Hinge.
off by the people who like you on these things where you go, oh my God, no?
Well, in Hinge, because mostly for the podcast, I've kept the age bracket open. Most of the people who like me on Hinge are in their 20s, and like I'm in my 50s, so that's not going to happen. And so, I'm amused.
We do have an episode dedicated to talking about like what the fuck is with the 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
Well, they're very, very open these days to pretty much everything. What age is no longer a barrier. So you should revel in it, Kris. You should open those doors wide to the 20-year-olds.
I don't know. I mean, we're in lockdown again in Toronto here, or in partial lockdown, but I don't know if I have the stomach to, but it might be interesting. And this is also not a really nice way to treat a human being, but it would be interesting to try to meet a 20-year-old and see how long the conversation could even last.
I just like the sentence, try to meet a 20-year-old.
Right?
Just kind of taking that by itself. That sounds fascinating to me because it sounds like, they don't really exist except in the wild or something. And you're like on a hunt.
Yeah.
They're trying to meet a Yeti.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
Well,
where are these elusive 20-year-olds? Where are they hiding?
I mean, obviously, a 20-year-old who's going to be, interested or friendly with someone who's, in their 50s.
Old enough to be their grandmother?
Well, I mean, that's pushing it a little bit, but
Yeah,
certainly old enough to be their mother.
No.
But obviously, that's an interesting person. I think that person would have a lot to say. Kind of what was it, Harold and Maude? Kind of. I mean, I don't.
Okay,
that
it's not
person.
that much of a difference, Brendan.
No, but hear me
This
out.
isn't
Greg.
that old.
No, but what I'm saying, okay, whatever. That wasn't meant as any sort of whatever. I'm just saying that.
I'm kidding.
Point is, that person has to have a little bit more depth than some dude who's just, searching for other 20-year-olds.
No,
I'm
I
not saying
think they're just swiping right on everybody. I don't think they're actually being discerning.
All right.
True though, because
Are you not giving yourself enough credit, Kris?
Exactly, because
you're
when
probably
we
very
have
attractive to 20-year-olds.
and when we have had those little
I don't know if
conversations,
that's good or not.
when we followed up with some of the children, which I will call
Yes.
them the children, we've heard things
Ooh,
back. like,
ageism. We didn't even talk about that last week. We could have gone into
that is
ageism, guys.
solid adultism, ageism, however you want to frame it. Yeah, I am definitely the children. But
If
when
you're old enough to be their parents, then I don't know how else you refer to them.
because it's in dating, right? It's a little like, oh, good, this is uncomfortable. But so asking, like, did you notice my age? And then getting a full explanation back of, you know, I actually am really drawn to someone who is older and has their life established and blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, there's clearly some sort of a draw and
potentially pay the rent on
and
the
then
studio
so
apartment.
there is that. And I've had people like, please give me a chance. And I'm like, no, I think you're very sweet, but I don't think that's a good idea. And then, but the other, so it's right. So is it a feather in their cap? But also, like, I don't know how many times these 20-year-olds have seen middle-aged people naked, but it is a different situation than it is when you see like 20-somethings naked. So if they're used to seeing their peers naked and then they see like someone like me naked, it's just it's a whole different sight.
Doesn't mean they won't think it's fucking hot as hell, right? Like, I mean, also you shouldn't assume what someone's going to be attracted to.
It's true.
That's what light switches are for.
This might be a slight
also
digression.
accurate.
This might be a slight digression.
That means it's definitely a digression.
It's a huge digression. But I
know this is going to sound racist, but go ahead.
I saw footage of an anti-gay rally, and some guy had a sign that said Harold and Maude, not Harold and Claude.
What?
That makes no okay.
You're invoking Harold and Maude, though.
Right.
That's A, dumb. B, a far-reaching reference that most of the people at the rally probably wouldn't even get.
No.
Okay, I made it up. I'm sorry. I just like that pun.
Okay.
I didn't really see that sign. I was
going to say, that's somebody who's out there trying to disrupt the rally is what they are.
Yeah.
I'm actually,
like a merry prankster.
You know, Greg, you could just do the joke without pretending these things actually exist.
It's funner that way, to lie and cheat and steal and do bad things.
It's more fun to ruin people's lives.
Yes.
I find it quite enjoyable to steal packages off people's porches.
Have you guys ever, like, in your research been like, shit, this isn't just for the show. I'm hooking up with this person. Like,
yeah. I mean, we are using dating apps to date and find partners. So yes, we do meet people and go out with them and etc.
Some of them become listeners.
And some of them become listeners.
Do you dish on them? Do you ever like talk about a date you had with one of these people? Or that's too
No, not
personal?
yet. And I mean, I'm trying to be. We did have one episode where, so we have what we call them story time. And so there was this one episode we had when we both saw people that we knew on the dating app and sort of what do you do in those situations. So
there were references to people who are currently in both of our lives in that episode. Yeah.
You know what you do? You date them, and then it's like a pina colada song. And then you're like, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're trying to get them to live the pina colada song, Greg?
Kind of, in a small way.
Yeah.
So you use these. You mentioned 3 different dating apps. I've been married for 30 years. I'm so not a dater.
Congratulations. Side note.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's something. It's an accomplishment for sure. But which of those? What are those? I mean, there's been times I thought maybe I should probably figure out these dating apps, but we've been through those storms. But the question is, which of those dating apps would you recommend? And would you recommend, like, okay, well, if you're 25 and younger, do this one. If you're 40 and up, do this one. Or is it kind of a mixed bag and it's just whatever you get? Or one is just a bigger platform like Tinder, which I've heard of. And so go there it's like Facebook. Everybody's on Tinder, and then you kind of can go into different maybe. Well,
Brendan, you would use Grindr.
Hey, come on, man.
I mean,
I'm asking a legitimate
Grindr. Go enjoy.
No, I'm just saying. I'm asking a legitimate question, and he just torpedoed it. But seriously,
how? What's wrong?
I'll speak for me, and then I want Lauren to answer too with their opinions on what they think. I think Hinge skews younger, as we sort of alluded to, and I think that's a good place to meet pretty quality people. And again, it's sort of like, what are you looking for, right? So like there's that layer as well, like what kind of relationship. I've met more quality people on Bumble, I would say, overall. Although the person that I went on a few dates with most recently, I met on Tinder. So there's whatever. Like it's all over the map for me in terms of what's going on that way. And then there's other, I mean, Lauren, do you want to talk about HUD?
That's exactly where I was going to go. HUD.
Like housing and urban development?
Yes, that.
I totally need to figure out what HUD stands for. Like, why did they do HUD? But
all the guys look like a young Paul Newman. It's like
because it was originally Chud, and they decided they weren't cannibalistic anymore.
Right.
So it's now humanoid urban dwellers, but they don't eat each other.
Well, I mean, so HUD is a kink connection app, way more so. And so like the whole interface when you're creating your profile, there's this really amazing, robust list of all different kinds of kinks that you can indicate. So kinks being things like
eating paint.
I mean, maybe, but I don't think that was on the list.
Gerbil piping.
That's Greg's favorite.
That was not on the list. But bondage was on the list, and all sorts of fabrics you might want to be bound by, and choking.
Fabrics.
Oh yeah,
PVC
like
pipe.
Well, yes, definitely.
Okay.
That's on there.
So it creates a great big database of these different kinks, and then you can rate them on like a scale of 1 to 5. Like,
or you say I'm into being the giver, I'm into being the receiver, or I'm not into this at all, or maybe I think about it, you know. So you can like indicate your kinks, so you can find other people who are into the same kinks as you, and so that's a way to connect.
Can I find a Dirty Sanchez person on there? Someone who's into Dirty Sanchez?
You definitely could.
It wouldn't likely specifically say Dirty Sanchez, but you would get very adjacent quickly.
But you know, Greg, if you want to just drive down from New York, you know, I'm here in Florida for you. Just put it out there.
This is the best app.
Greg would have to learn how to drive to do that, though, Brenda.
And there's a similar one called Field, which is also like a place too where couples and singles can also find each other for
that one's
ethical non-monogamous too.
Yeah, and that one's way more for couples and ethical non-monogamous people. So you're kind of going in eyes wide open, knowing most people have other humans around.
For the hippies, there's Meadow.
Which is the app that leads to the most heartbreaks? Where it's just like people getting on there just wanting to fuck and like, see you later. Thanks for the screw.
Oh, more of that.
Is that what heartbreak means?
I was going to say that's not what heartbreak means. That just sounds fun, but you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if they do it in a mean way. Like, you know.
I would think the paid apps. I'm going to go with like the ones like Match and stuff like that, where like I think
because I think it's going to happen on paid apps. Really?
Well, because I think the intention of a paid app, or a lot of people who will pay money to be on an app, are thinking they're actually going to make I'm so used to saying non-monogamous, but like a monogamous connection, and like that's going to lead to something or do whatever. And so like I think then you pay, and I think there's a certain expectation that goes along with those paid apps that I think in eHarmony and places like that. And again, I've got research stuff. I've done actual talks on the science of online dating. And so there are some components that I think lead to that, because I think like Tinder, for example, has the reputation of being a one and done. Whereas, and other, like, whereas Hinge and Bumble are sort of like in between those kinds of things. And then places like HUD and Field are much more above board, like where you're just saying things, but like, it's just hard to say.
Hooking up, but not in a way you're going to hurt each other, right? Like it's
right
much
in
more
a very.
So it's an expectation factor in that, you go with a Match.com or an eHarmony, like let's say, God forbid I got divorced and I was like, oh, well, I'm not done with relationships.
Right.
I feel like that would seem like I kind of see what you're saying. I would like, I'm not going to do Tinder. I'm not interested in, like, that seems like a young person thing. I need to hook up. And then it turns out that it's not. And so your expectation is this, and the result is that. No, I could totally see that. So just go straight to Tinder or Bumble or whatever and forget the middleman.
Yeah. Well, and also in our podcast, we talk about like, what are these people looking for, right? Like, so we can see, like, there are certain people who will say very clearly, like, I mean, one of the people that I'm sort of with and spending some time with is I'm poly, I'm pansexual, and I'm a parent, right? So like has a nice little alliteration going, but right up front is like, this is who I am. And it's like, fantastic. I know who you are. I know what's going on. I'm not like, like swindled or whatever the heck is the right word for that. But like, you know, like,
Right.
and so you know who's there and what's happening. And then you have other people who are like, I'm looking for the one true love and my soulmate who can read my mind. And like, you know, we bond forever. And so
can I quote from someone? The soulful telepathy.
Oh yeah. Someone was looking for soulful telepathy. And we're like,
no one can read your mind, man. No one can read your mind.
Hey.
Wow.
Was that the
Like,
person who got his is that the person who got his date, like his romance memes from the business site?
Yes.
And I'm still not over that. Like, you know, like he had these memes about like your one true love is like all you ever need in your life and all these things. And then like, but in like the watermark was from like a business website. I'm like, I haven't gotten over that yet. I'm like, don't do that. Like, don't make your like romantic things have like an @BizWorld. Like,
So he was using uncredited deposit photos, images.
no. I think these
were
romantic memes came from a business website. Like they were inspirational about what true love means, and
Oh, I see.
and it
Yeah.
sort of led me to write so we have show notes, and we'll always write show notes at the end. But it led me to write a show note about codependency. So
Yeah, so so that's the thing we didn't talk about. So the sex ed component really, I mean, we'll talk about a lot of things, and often we're talking about consent, respect for people, like how to feel connections, how to be self-aware, lots of how to communicate, all those sorts of things. But we'll then often extend those conversations on our website where we write what Kris is describing as show notes. And so each episode ends up having a note attached to it that's like, the more you know, and where we'll take one theme that comes up and
Are
extend
there a
it.
lot of goofball pranksters on these sites who just make a totally obviously goofy profiles just to be funny? Is that a thing? Because I always thought that would be fun to do.
You should totally do it and have fun with it and have
Well, I
interesting.
don't know how to use those. I don't have the technology know-how to get on Tinder.
I'll make
Greg
you
is
an
still
online
trying to figure
profile.
out how to get
Greg.
the cans to work when you tie the strings together.
I was thinking I could be a guy named like Garfield Jones. It's like, I like Mondays. I love lasagna. I
But
hate
someone would
dogs.
probably
Dogs.
swipe right on that.
I would totally swipe right on you, and I'd be like, "Hey, Garfield, but you would have to. I'd be so disappointed if you did not continue to talk to me in Garfield. Like that would be like. But think about the delight you bring to someone's life in doing. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, Greg, think about the delight you would bring to someone's
If I had the
life.
time, believe me, I'd do it. But you know me.
There could be a Dilbert.
Very busy man.
That's right. He's got to get more drinking time.
Oh my
man. He
God,
doesn't have
Kathy
time to
would
do
be
that.
great. Kathy would be like, hate trying on swimsuits, but love donuts at work.
You sure you wouldn't go for Dilbert, Greg?
Dilbert's
Take
so
on the
good.
Dilbert persona.
Maybe.
Well, we've reached about the halfway mark. Where can people find your podcast, doctors?
Everywhere
Where
you
all the
can find
podcasts are.
Spotify, Apple, all the things, and it's just the letter B, the number 4, the letter U, swipe. And then you can also send us profiles. So if anyone is listening and is like, oh man, I saw a thing, just screen grab it on your, I've just made gestures like I was pushing on both sides of my phone. So if you have an iPhone, that's what you do.
Well, people on YouTube might do that. People who listen to this on our podcast.
It's like the new
platform
version
will
of
go,
this.
We don't know what that person's
the
talking
airport.
about.
Yes.
Well, so yeah, but you can send us screen grabs, however you take screen grabs on your devices, and send those to us, and we will over.
I just figured out how to do that. I figured out how to do a screen grab
Screen
this
grab?
year.
Good job,
Goody,
Greg.
goody, 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 goody.
But
Good
yeah, it's
job,
the letter
Greg.
B, the number 4, the letter U, swipe at gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, but we are shitty social media people. We never post anything, but we are there, and we are there to listen if you send something our way. And we will someday figure out how to promote ourselves on social media.
Exactly. How to
Their
work
next
that into-
podcast will be called Shitty Social Media People.
Yes.
Perfect.
And you will find that on your local local typewriter. Okay, well that brings us to our midway point for the most part, which means that we're ready for the cooking segment, and then we'll ask Greg a question, and then we'll move on to our client for the day. So why don't I get the cooking segment going here, and everyone, this is
Can't wait for
another
the
holiday
cooking.
one. What's
Oh,
that?
good. I said I can't wait.
I know you'll have to wait. Here we go. Hey there, everybody. This is Waspy Soda Pop And you're not. This is Food is for Eating. Today we got a very special holiday hamster recipe because everybody makes a Christmas hamster. So this is going to be my take on the Christmas hamster. So first you want to get one large teddy bear hamster or a golden hamster or a Syrian hamster. It's got a couple of different names. You can get that at your local hamster emporium or butcher shop. Then you also want to get a half cup of cranberry sauce, quarter cup of orange marmalade, quarter cup of apricot preserves, half cup of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, and 1 tablespoon of ketchup. All right. First, you preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of you who live in Celsius land, I have no idea what that is, so you figure it out. Anyway, you want to take your hamster out of the refrigerator while you prepare the glaze, which was those other ingredients that I mentioned before. You mix all the ingredients together, the cranberry sauce, the marmalade, the apricot preserves, the brown sugar, the Dijon mustard, the ketchup. Mix them all up. It makes 1 heaping cup of glaze, enough for the hamster and for some sauce on the side. You place the hamster cut side down in a small roasting pan or baking dish. You want to bake for 20 minutes. Remove the hamster from the oven. Spoon all the glaze over. Cover the hamster completely, like you're putting it into a nice warm blanket that's very sticky. Then you're going to bake it for an additional 20 minutes, basting every 6 minutes or so. The sauce will thicken and brown. You want to be careful not to burn the sauce or it's going to get yucky. You will be very, very sad. And no one wants to be depressed when they're cooking their Christmas hamster, especially if you're doing it for the holidays like Arbor Day. Anyway, then you want to let the hamster rest for a few minutes. Slice it to your desired thickness and spoon the pan sauce over. Serve sauce on the side. And it's going to give that extra crunch of goodness on the hamster. Some people find that if you display it in a colorful hamster wheel, that can be the most festive way to serve it, but it's up to you. I find that tubes work best for the most direct route to the plate. This is perfect for a large family of 2 for the holidays. And don't forget, don't play with your food. This is Waspy Soda Pop, and it's Food is for Eating. Happy holidays.
Good work. I like Christmas hamster.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that Waspy found himself a real protein this time around.
Better than him eating wood. I just want to
or air ducts.
Right, point out to our listeners who may be using Spotify that if you type B4U swipe without a space between you and swipe, you won't find their podcast. So definitely put a space between B4, the letter U, space swipe, to find it on Spotify, which is, I think, where most of our listeners are.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
I don't
I
know
appreciate
where
it.
We'll have
most
to
of
figure
our
out if we can
listeners
fix
are.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can, unfortunately, because it was weird. Anyway, so there you go.
Or if you just put it into Google, it'll show up somewhere.
Well, that's how I solved the problem. Is I went to Google and then I found it, and then I went, and then I put a space into Spotify and I found it. So
Got it.
Oh, okay.
And if you type in Quiver, Quibble, and Bicker, just for our website, just so you know, it won't come up.
No, nothing will.
That doesn't
come up,
work.
Actually, no.
Thanks,
Exactly.
Greg. Another useful tidbit from Greg.
Speaking of Greg, we are now on to our next segment. This is where actual legal questions get answered by Greg.
I just want you to know I don't have my law books here because I'm on vacation, so it's going to be a little flying by the seat of my pants.
Well, this will be a shorter segment than normal because I don't know. Brenda, did you get a question together for this week?
Depending on how long it takes on his, I do have one in the queue.
Okay, well, this is a very simple one. So, Greg, just so you know, and everybody, this is Ask Greg. A law in the state of Ohio prohibits the usage of Santa Claus or his image to sell alcoholic beverages. And this law came to attention when Bud Light attempted to use Spuds MacKenzie, as mentioned in our sponsor earlier today, in a Santa Claus outfit during a 1987 ad campaign. They were forced to stop using the imagery. So, Greg, why do you think that law was put into place from your perspective as a non-attorney, as a fake lawyer? What do you think?
Well, in the 1930s and 1930s during Prohibition.
Wait, the 1930s and the 1930s?
The 1920s and
Okay,
the
got it.
1930s.
Okay, just checking.
A lot of advertisers were using Santa Claus advertisements. And so that basically gave people license to put like little bottles of liquor in their kids' stocking stuffers. And childhood alcoholism went through the fucking roof. It was nuts. Easter time, they do it. They just figured, oh, any nice religious holiday, we're going to start giving kids liquor because, hey, Santa Claus, he's going to put in their stocking stuffer. So it was terrible. Kids were going to school drunk. They were getting in a bicycle under the influence accidents, tricycles, and it was go-karts, swerving into trees because the kids were liquored up. So that's why they passed a law. Now, more states should pass that law, I think.
Well, sorry, I just got the visual of it all. I think that's excellent.
The go-kart especially.
Yeah, bursting into
They're all
flames.
getting loaded on tricycles and riding down the street. All right, that was an excellent response, Greg, I have to say. Thank you very much for that one.
It's the law. It's
Yeah.
not me.
Well, you were suggesting that other states should pick up on that as well. So
Right.
Oh, yes.
Man,
And
is a
other
good suggestion.
countries, as the international component of this
Yes.
podcast, I'll start to campaign for this to happen, at least provincially here in Ontario.
Yeah, like
You
the
know what they
same
should-
the province in Canada that's similar to the state of Ohio.
Yes, because they go
I'm
begin
part
with
of the
O and
internet-
end in O.
I'm part of the International Ethical Lawyers Alliance, and we try to push progressive laws. And we're trying to do the opposite in Europe and have Krampus do liquor ads to scare children away. So we're trying to get that law passed.
Okay.
And we think it will be successful.
The International Fake Lawyers Association, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to confirm
I
that one.
respect your activism.
Brenda, did you have
Yeah,
one
we're
that
activist lawyers.
did you have a question you wanted to ask Greg?
I'll save it for next week.
Okay. And I'll give our guests an opportunity. If you have a legal question that you've been thinking of or you've heard of that you want, feel free to ask Greg right now if you have a question waiting in the wings there. He is quite adept at addressing these legal questions.
Ooh, can we ask the?
Yes.
Oh, well, sorry,
Ask Greg.
I don't want to jump. If you had one burning, I'll.
No, please, Lauren,
Go
go.
ahead.
Greg, this is a legit question that we've really wondered about, so we really need your counsel. Is there any liability that we're using people's profiles in our podcast we should be concerned about?
100% there is. And you guys are probably going to be sued out of your buttholes.
I know, right? This is
So
our
you better
concern.
hope that you don't get too high of an audience, because once people start seeing that shit, you're sued.
Yep.
Cool. That's kind of what we thought.
Sorry. Sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings.
But
Yeah.
specifically out of their buttholes.
Out of our buttholes.
Specifically, I was using legal terms. So
Yeah.
I'll break it down for the layman.
Is that the Latin butthole-less?
You'll be sued out of your hoo-haws.
I don't think that's my butthole.
I think
Just speaking as a
a lot of
generic
dudes
sex
get
educator here.
confused. We know a lot of dudes get confused about the holes down there, but
The wrong hole
I
syndrome.
just have issues with pores myself. Okay, so that being the Ask Greg segment of the show, now we can move on to discussing our client for today. And our client for today is I Saw Mommy Pegging Santa Claus. And Greg decided, it was the deciding vote on this being the client that we should pick up for the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. So, Greg, what was it about this particular client that you found most attractive that you wanted to explore further, so to speak?
Well, it's right there in the name. God.
What
Clean
I
the
saw
wax out of your ears. It's brilliant.
was
No.
it the clause part of it?
I just want to say legally, though, it's shaky ground because I don't think any state is legal to peg Santa Claus. I hope.
Consensually, I think we're okay. If Santa wants to be pegged,
No, but
go
Santa
Santa.
Claus is a mythical creature, and it seems.
I was just wondering if it involves cribbage in some way.
Oh, pegging. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have
That's
the
the
little
best way
tiny
to do it.
pegs, right? You know,
Aw.
because I'm an older man and I don't know
Well,
a
you
lot
c-
of these newfangled terms.
That's where pegging started. People would pay cribbage, and the loser would get pegged by the winner, or vice versa.
Is that
depending
how
on
it's? Is that how it
how they
started?
liked. Yeah, that's why it's called pegging.
I
As
didn't
long
know
as
that.
everyone consents at the beginning of the game that sounds fun.
Exactly.
I mean, right on.
So the song from Steely Dan called Peg, that's what it's all about.
Could be.
Now,
It's not like
Peg,
their lyrics would tell you what it was about because their lyrics never mean anything.
well, the name Steely Dan, as many people know, originally came from the term for a dildo that was used in the book Naked Lunch from William Burroughs. So it seems to make sense that there could be like a Peg connection there, unless you're talking about women named Margaret, who also can be called Peggy or Peg for short.
You know where the name 10cc came from?
Just want to know how the hell this came back to a prog rock band. That's a big. That is a big.
Steely Dan's not a prog rock band. They're like a jazz fusion rock band.
Oh no, they're a prog rock.
Nah, they're not prog.
No, I think they do.
No, they're not. They're not a prog band.
They're their own unique creature, Steely Dan.
They were. But again, getting back to Peg, or we can just talk about Santa Claus in general, like where Santa Claus comes from and like where the nature of pegging like intersected in that case. Or is it the fact that maybe a kid actually saw or an adult saw their mother pegging Santa Claus and were traumatized or
enthralled.
Or involved.
No, enthralled, not involved. Enthralled.
Yeah, very big difference.
Those are
different cultures. That goes back to the white trash sponsor we had.
Yeah, a few letters makes a lot of difference in that sentence. Being that we have some actual experts as opposed to the idiots we normally have on here,
like us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people talk about the quote unquote trauma that a child might go through because they saw Santa or mom or somebody doing something in the privacy of their room because they came up to get a drink or what. How traumatic is that really? Is that really that traumatic, or is it?
Are you asking our guest a question?
Yeah, no,
okay.
I am asking the question. Yeah, no, I'm asking you, Matt. When you walked in on mom and dad going at it, did it really affect you?
I never saw that happen.
Okay, that explains.
Never happened to me. And I'm very happy about that.
I did, and that's why I'm the way I am now. But I want to hear what the experts say. I think Brendan is right. I think most kids probably are like, yeah, I get it. Isn't it in our wiring? Like our DNA? We like probably instinctively know what it is,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, or do you walk in and it's like one of those moments where you don't even remember it. It's just too shocking. And then you walk out.
Well, and Lauren might have a different answer because it's one of those questions like in a lot of sex ed where you can end up with the it depends answer because like the age of the kiddo, kid might not understand what was even happening in the first place. And so a lot of it, as hard as it might be to do, the parents, if they can try to react not in this like embarrassed, shameful way or basically having like feel like the kid did something bad or wrong by walking in. Like, so if they can just sort of say like, what mom and mom or mom and dad, but like what we were doing was private. And, if our doors closed, please knock. Like these are, and sort of establish those rules more than like, never do that again, or you're bad for seeing that, or assuming the kid is now traumatized or things like that, because that it's usually the reaction that causes the
so would you say
memory.
Would you say that the parents in Tommy did the exact opposite of what you should do? They didn't do it well. The parents in Tommy.
I don't know the Tommy.
Tommy, the musical rock opera.
I have not seen the rock opera, I must admit.
Okay, sorry about that reference.
Greg is an old man, and that is why you haven't seen it.
Fucking this other guy, and they actually like tell him that he didn't see anything or hear anything.
Don't gaslight your kid. Don't tell them they did that. It's like
he actually goes blind. They scar him. He's so scarred he goes blind for the rest of his life, and he goes deaf.
Right.
And
but he's an excellent pinball player. Apparently.
Right.
Yes.
But he had an excellent sense of smell.
He had crazy flipping fingers.
Yep.
Right. You should have seen the digit counters fall.
Yep.
All right. I think we've worked the Tommy reference now.
Yeah, exactly. Hey.
Okay, Lauren, what's your take on this?
Yeah,
Lauren,
I think Kris is making a really good point of like the reaction is where the problem is. I mean, if you want to really go back to like the kid experience, right? So depending on age, if you have no framework around sex at all, if you've never seen porn, if you haven't had any conversations, if you haven't looked at a book, you're going to think people are wrestling. I mean, if everyone's visible, if there's no blankets, if the lights are on, you'll be like, okay, my references for nakedness are like, well, it depends on the family, but like showering, and, you know, certain things that you do, changing your clothes, whatever. Or if you can't really see what's going on, you might think people are tickling each other, especially if there's happy sounds that you register as those are happy sounds. You're going to put it in the happy box, and it's going to go into a schema with other happy things, and you're going to make sense of it with whatever information you already have. Like, that's how our brains operate. Unless there's something that cues you to say this thing was different and I should either be afraid of it or feel bad about it. And so that's where the reaction comes in.
Unless the mother has a giant purple dildo that she's inserting into the back of a man wearing a red and white fur outfit.
Right, and again, that comes back to that's for adults.
Really good sex. I think if they're having really good sex that's really hot, the sounds are probably terrifying because you're making these god awful noises. It's like ah. Oh!
Wait a second, Greg, is that the noise that you make when you?
I know, I'm so curious.
I was like, oh, tell me more about these noises.
I always expected you have like a high-pitched squeal, like.
No, I have a giddy laugh, a giddy giggle. I go
and that's the happy voice. And if it's a teenager who knows damn well what they just walked into, it's one of those either I'm sorry it happened, like. I'm sorry you saw that, and knock next time. And I bet the teenager's going to get the message and knock next time.
They're going to be like, you're still fucking? Ew. You know, I mean, that's going to be the reaction. But it's like a quick ew, and you walk away.
Yeah, I wanted to say I had the opposite reaction when I first saw UFC fighting. In the corner of my eye in a bar. I was in a bar, and I thought it was like in the corner of my eye, I thought it was gay porno. Like the way these half-naked guys were grappling.
Sure.
And I was like, wait, what is this? It seems really like, and I was like, oh, it's wrestling. So it's the opposite of a kid who thinks his parents are wrestling.
Right.
And you asked, how can I become an MMA fighter? And that began your.
And the other piece, though, that I would add is that if the parents are engaged in, or the two, I'm assuming parents, but like if the two people in the bedroom are engaged in something that is a little bit more or less vanilla, I'll say, then there might need to be like a don't try this at home thing. So like, don't tie somebody to a bed. Don't pour candle wax on somebody. Don't adults know how to do these things, and like it's dangerous, and it's.
And I would probably flip that just a little bit, and I would say it in the positive of, as adults, like we've talked about and we've learned our skills. So this is something you got to learn more about before it would be okay for anyone, better. Whether so like going the positive route. I mean, everyone, whatever, everyone's got their own parenting style or communication style, but I would never want to say don't and pair it with some of the fun kinky shit that I'm like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that point there too. It was just more the idea of that if someone sees something that is requires a certain skill set, or it's like more in depth, then it's like that cautious thing of sort of
you may not want to know that your mommies have been to sex workshops, but your mommies have been to sex workshops.
Right.
And here's a YouTube channel.
I once caught my parents having sex, and I think it's like a suppressed memory where it almost felt like a dream for so long. Like, did that really happen? I don't, but I think it did, because it was very specific. Usually dreams are weirder. And I remember walking in, and it was kind of dark, but I could see my dad and my mom, and I was really little. And I think I had a nightmare, so I wanted to talk to them or something. And my dad just kind of turned around.
What was that, Greg?
Oh no!
And Greg
closed it. I knew something like I shouldn't be there, so I closed the door. And then they never talked to me about it. They never talked the next day. They didn't say, "Oh, Greg."
Well, you got to back up, Greg. Greg, you froze when you were talking before, so you need to back up to when you walked in the room and what your dad said.
That's Dad moved his head, and what happened then?
Yeah, we missed that part.
And then his whole head spun around like the Exorcist. No, I'm kidding. So, no, he just turned around and just said, he was just like, Greg? And I was just like, for some reason, there was an instinctual thing. I was like, and I closed the door, went back to bed. And then the next day, he never talked to me about it.
Oh.
So
he just said your name and you walked out.
Yeah, he just kind of went, and it wasn't like shitty, like, Greg.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? He was just like, Greg? Like, oh, shit. But he never talked to me about it. And, I grew up Catholic, too, so sex was always has that weird That's wrong.
Yeah.
So it always
I mean,
seemed
it's not
weird to me.
horrible if he didn't react in a shaming, angry way, and he just said your name and you left. I mean, and again, depending on how old you were, it might not be the worst thing to just then sweep it under the rug and not bring it up again. I mean, it's not.
That's
It's,
true.
it's, I mean, you're missing a moment, and it's not the worst reaction in the world, right? Like, I'm gonna sort of say
Because I
it.
think, Kris, what I really appreciate about what you just said is I think a lot of parents are just really, I mean, we live, especially here in the US, it is such a sex negative culture. There's so much shame, and you reference Catholicism, man, that is a whole intense scene, right? Around sex and what you say and what you don't say and what's okay.
It's because of Santa Claus, actually.
It is absolutely, because everyone
Santa Claus comes out of the Catholic and Orthodox cultures.
and no one wants to pull, and so we got to be good little girls and boys. And we're only girls and boys also, for the record. But Kris,
Forever.
I think you're making a really generous point though toward parents of like, part of our philosophy in general is like, man, people are just doing their fucking best with the information they have. And so did your parent, was that a missed opportunity to have another follow-up conversation and be like, hey, everything was okay. I know it might've seemed different in the room when you walked in last night, but like everything was cool. Do you have any questions? Like, that's what I would say to any parent is ask the kid, do you have any questions about what you saw? They will then ask you age appropriate questions for what they're curious about. Because usually adults are like, fuck, I have to tell you everything that happened and what was going, and it's like kids most of the time don't want to know. They're like, or the kinds of questions they have are super
like,
bizarre.
was the other parent okay? Or were you okay? And it's just like, yep, we were fine.
Was that fun?
Thumbs up.
And you're like, yeah. And they're like, cool. And they walk away. It's just, yeah, we shouldn't assume what the kids actually want. So, we'd also say to parents, just chill the fuck out. It's probably low key in the kids' world, but you can make it a big thing by either ignoring it or,
Making a big deal out of it for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
it reminds me of like it's like this dumb joke, but I think it has a lot of like messaging behind it, which is like, a kid, like a 4-year-old comes back from nursery school or kindergarten or whatever and is like, oh, to a parent, where did I come from? And the parent's like takes the deep breath and is like, all right, here we go. And I'm gonna does the huge, talk about the birds and the bees and where babies come from and penises and vaginas and pregnancies, and the kid's eyes get really wide and the kid's like, oh, that's where I came from, because Johnny came from Philadelphia.
All I know is that you just answered a whole lot of questions for Greg just now.
Right? So the bottom line, it's like, where did I come from? Oh, that's a great question. Why did you ask? Oh, because Johnny came from Philly. It's like, oh, great. You came from Chicago. Done.
Right.
That's what the kid wanted to hear, right? Like, so it's just
clarifying what question is being asked is important in life in a lot of ways. And, that's a great example of it for sure.
I would tell my kid, you came from nothingness and you will end up as nothing when you die. That's what I would tell my kid if he asked that question.
And then you'd read them the definition of nihilism and explain about where they stand in the universe and how they're merely one with the universe. They're made up of the same atoms as the rest of the universe as well.
A Christmas card that I got, which is like, it says on the front of it, it's like Frosty the Snowman had a peaceful relationship with his temporary existence in life. And then it's like crossed out and it says, how about a corncob pipe? This is too dark. It's like, so it's just that idea of,
There's also
maybe Frosty shouldn't have been smoking because that hastened his demise.
Totally right.
Yeah.
It melted him more.
Yeah.
Fire.
And then just a puddle also.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm getting sad now. Let's talk about something more upbeat.
Hey, Greg,
Like
I'm just
mommy
curious.
pegging Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious though, Greg. I want to turn the question back to you. What do you wish your parents had done, or your dad, or whatever?
Do you wish your dad had pegged Santa Claus instead?
I wish my parents so bad taught me about anything. They never taught me about anything. So when I started masturbating, I was just like, I thought I was this one solitary freak in the world. I had no clue that anyone else was doing it. I thought I was this hard. It was also the Catholic Church did some shit on me. But I was like, if they just told me at 13, Greg, I noticed you're in the bathroom a lot. You want to talk about it? That's everyone does that, Greg. I do it sometimes when your mom's away. And I would have just been like, oh, really? Whew. Thank God. Yeah. But I grew up hating myself because I thought I was I thought I was going to end up like in the park, the guy in the coat,
Right.
flashing people, and I just thought I was the biggest pervert in the world.
You're taught you're a
Just 'cause I was
deviant. That's
jerking
And
all.
has that position changed, Greg?
A little logically, but still my feelings still feel like sex is maybe I should be having sex. It's wrong.
Yeah, I
It's
never
just
had
weird.
any talk with my parents, but my mother did give us a book called Where Do I Come From? And then when puberty was coming around, she gave us another book called What's Happening to Me. And
I remember
but
that one.
never
I got that one
talked
too.
about. Those topics were never discussed.
Yeah.
All I was given this book, and I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah, this
And
probably
if-
explains a lot. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and if Santa came around and said, "Please peg me," you'd be like, "I don't know. I don't
that
know."
wasn't in the book.
It wasn't in the book.
Yeah. I was gonna say I have an older brother, so I mean I always had him to talk to. I didn't have to talk to mom and dad about all those things. And
Did he have good information? Do you feel like?
did he have good information? He had information. I didn't live the existence that Greg did, and that I didn't have somebody go, "Oh yeah, dude, I get it. No, totally. That's what happens." And you know, just don't let mom catch it because she'll freak the hell out. You know, so I had that kind of good information. I didn't feel, you know, whatever. But yeah.
Well, I had an older brother who was gay, so he was in 10 times the amount of hell I was in because he was jerking off thinking about men. So he was way more probably guilty than I.
Well, how did you know what he
I
was thinking about? Did he
I
tell
was
you?
I was gonna say, like, I mean, if you're doing that, you're doing that. I mean, what's going on in your mind is.
No, I'm saying my brother, like, he didn't come out really late. Like, he was really like in the closet for a long time.
Mhm.
And I imagine that he probably was like me, who grew up not knowing about sex and like, why are we doing these horrible things?
And with the Catholic Church probably telling him, you know, that
yeah.
you know, queer people are going to burn in hell. And
Yeah.
Fuck, man, that's intense, Greg. I hope your brother
Well,
feels very loved now.
Intense for him. I was.
Yeah.
This
That's
just
intense.
explains Greg's certain hoodie fascination, though.
What?
Cold. It
If
is
that was the
cold
reaction,
over here
I
on
was
the
looking
East
for.
Coast. It
Wait,
snowed
who's in
several
New York?
times.
Sometimes I just like to say things and see the responses.
And have the whole group be like, huh?
What? Where's Matt going with this one? Well, we have no
Wait,
idea.
Greg, I thought you were in Portland. No, you're in New York.
He's in New York
Is that-
today. He's normally in
Today.
Portland, but today he's in New York. He's
Okay.
visiting family out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I froze up, so I kind of missed a lot of that. But no, let's move on. Enough about me.
Enough about Greg and his pegging of Santa Claus. All right, well, the fact of the matter, though, is that we have come to the conclusion of this week's episode. I do want to greatly thank Dr. Lauren Lichty and Dr. Kris Gowen, the hosts of the Before You Swipe podcast. Again, everybody go out and listen to it now after you hear the end of this particular show. And do you guys have anything last you would like to say to anybody who's listening? Anything that you want communicated?
I think the only thing I always want to say to everyone is just whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're into, as long as there's consent involved, whether it's with yourself or someone else, like, fuck yeah, enjoy. Let go of the
Okay.
shame, let go of the guilt. Yep.
That's right. Feel free to kill someone who asks you to kill them. So
Ooh,
that's what it's all
Let
about.
your
That's
freak
assisted
flag
suicide. I think
fly.
we're good. I think we're
I
still
was
okay.
gonna say, depending on what state you're in, like, solid, right on.
Okay, well, it's
I mean,
it's
if
all
you're going to open that door, man, I'm all for it. I think, more states
Agreed.
should have that rule.
Are you
Absolutely.
asking for help? Is what you're saying, Brendan?
I'm saying if I'm like shitting myself, I've already told my boys, if dad can't wipe his own ass, it's time to just put me down. So,
Well, there's a difference between shitting yourself and not being able to wipe your own ass. So what are you clarifying here?
You got to get some real clear lines, bright lines.
I've
bright-
shit myself. Believe
Yeah,
me.
you could shit yourself
a
and
few
still wipe
times.
yourself. But if you can't wipe yourself, that's different.
Yeah, I could wipe
okay,
myself.
so I guess I'll hang it up on can't wipe my own ass.
Okay.
There you go.
Your feelings might change, so you'd have like we have to have this conversation 3 more times.
Yeah, what if you're fully
be like, actually,
lucid,
this
but
is
your
illegal.
arms are amputated?
My arms are amputated?
Yes. But you're totally still like lucid and can
I have no
think
fear
and-
of death. Just do it. If I'm
There you
if I'm a bigger burden on people than I can contribute, then it's probably time to go.
You think you're not going to be able to contribute without having arms?
Given my career, yes. Unless I can type with my nose, I don't know what I would do.
You can
You-
type
there's
with your
speech
nose. Or
hard-
you can,
hardware
exactly, you can do
software.
speech to text.
There are
and,
ways.
You know, Stephen Hawking wrote books.
We'll support you,
I'm so-
Brendan.
I'm sorry,
if you lose
Brendan.
your arms, we've got your back.
It's your life. It's your right to choose, man. We believe in your right to choose.
But I gotta say, Stephen Hawking was a big burden on everyone around him. They were probably sick of that fucker.
Yeah, but he was
Oh, we gotta
figuring
wipe
out
his
black
ass.
holes. I'm not figuring out black holes. I mean, I'm making websites and doing social
Can I just
media.
put one quick thing? This is always the weird consent issue in the past 20 years that really tests it. Well, it doesn't really test it to me. There was that German cannibal who put out like want ads for, hey, is anybody into like being eaten? Like, does anybody have this sick, perverse thing that you want to be eaten by someone, murdered and eaten? And some guy answered. There's a kink for everyone, and he ate him, killed him, and ate him, and then of course he got arrested.
I was going
But
to say
it
he
was
got charged,
consensual.
right?
It was consensual.
What happened? Did he go to prison?
I thought that
I
was like
can't
a
remember
Saturday Night Live skit. Is that for real?
No, I'm serious.
No, it
This is a
really
real
happened.
story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this real? Okay, because I've
It
definitely
was on
heard
the
of it, but I
AP
don't know if it's real.
Newswire. It was all over the AP Newswire like 15, 20 years ago. And I guess he wasn't lying. This guy did answer. There was proof that this guy said, yeah, I'm into this. And he ate him, but that's against the law. But
The eating part, if that's the problem. And also, I don't know what the laws are for the assisted suicide because it
Right.
usually has to be under the guidance of a physician. Like you just can't
Not a
whack
cannibal.
someone who wants to die.
And there's
Yeah.
there's so few places where that's ever been legal too, right? Like, so you'd have to be in
Yeah.
the right city and I mean, there's so many
And
states.
then you get into like mental health issues. Like, is this guy in a frame of mind that he can make these kind of decisions for himself? Like,
So
yeah, I
much.
want to die and be eaten. Okay, well, let's talk about it for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why a physician is usually involved before
Yeah.
people get greenlighted. Yeah.
You know, I
This
was
is
going to toss out all of these keyword search terms today, and I totally forgot to do it. I had this whole experiment I was going to do today. I was going to all right, so I've decided to quickly.
Just say them. Just
I'm
say them
gonna-
in succession.
Femdom, Santa Claus 1959, Free Fire, Chile, Hookups and Fishing, Etsy, Adopt Me, TikTok, Tinder Gold, Tinder Platinum. So I was really wanted to get into Santa Claus 1959. But anyway,
I
that
was
was...
gonna say that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those
Right.
were the search terms that the software recommended.
That's right.
You should not
Santa
pay
Claus
the
$19.59.
$30 plus.
Santa Claus 1959 was one that I really kind of wanted to explore at one point, just because I didn't know what it had to do with anything.
Well,
And
that's the
also,
movie.
femdom was another one. I was thinking, is that like a kingdom? But it's a femdom, and it's like you don't have a king. It's so
Yeah.
I figured they would be very good
Well,
at answering that question.
I understand that.
And
given
Etsy as well could be
the,
involved.
Etsy. Where does
Etsy's
Etsy
great.
come from?
Oh,
Just
Etsy's
buy,
gonna give you
well,
or a special outfit to wear when you're pegging Santa. I mean,
Is that what it
I
is?
just bought
Yeah,
two-
actually, I think that
I-
works
yeah.
the best, honestly.
so Matt, no cribbage sites came up.
No.
But you know, there could be people out there hunting down cribbage and pegging for that specific thing.
There's a site. There's a part of Etsy I have not seen. Obviously,
I just bought two ornaments off of Etsy. One is they both look like snowflakes, but one is a bunch of penises like around, and they're like ejaculating out, so it's like this little snowflake pattern. And the other one is like
You
vulva.
bought that as an ornament?
hell yeah!
So I have these
hell-
two
hell
Christmas
yeah.
ornaments. One's the penises ejaculating, and the other one's like vulva, like all interlocked, so it has a snowflake pattern.
That just sounds messy.
That's
Well, they're not.
point
They're
versus
actually liquidy.
nested cunts behind my head. That's the art on my wall. Is
What's behind your head?
behind my head, and your podcast listeners won't be able to see, but it's nested, coin purses of all different sizes, and they're nested together. And so it's actually called the coin purse. Oh man, I should remember the artist's name. Scott something is in their name somewhere. Scott's in the name, but
Scott something.
Scott something.
Scott
Or
You
something.
can look up
I
Scott
think
something and they'll
Scott
find him.
Scott
And cunt
coin.
Just-
coin purse.
just
you'll
put
find
a
it.
space between Scott and something if you're searching
Yeah.
for it on Spotify,
Exactly.
But only Spotify, nowhere else.
but only on Spotify, not on Apple or any of the other podcasting systems. For whatever
Penis and
reason.
vulva ornaments, cunt coin purses. We've got all your needs met.
Yes.
I gotta get. As soon as this is over, I'm heading to Etsy. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have one more episode left before the end of the year, so next week is going to be kind of a year-end roundup, and that'll be exciting or boring, or both at the same time, depending upon
Can we
where
get
you
wound up?
log in. What?
during that? Can we get wound up during that roundup?
Wound up? What do you mean?
During the wind down.
Greg,
Most of the
please
people have
get
to go
wound up. I think if we're going to do it, I think Greg and I should be as drunk as we possibly can.
I think we need to do one episode where we're all at like full-blown enthusiasm.
But we should all drink eggnog and vomit at the end of the podcast on YouTube.
You know, the problem with eggnog is like, you know, it's just so many calories and it's so much sugar.
You can't drink enough to get drunk off of eggnog because it fills you up first.
Yeah, I agree. It's like
Bad
I'll have
choice.
one and then I go, all right, I'm done.
It's also disgusting just across the
Yeah, that's the main reason.
And yeah, if you don't like eggnog, it's really a bad choice.
really a bad choice. I can
I
make
made some moonshine eggnog
Or there's a
before. Like the
reason
stuff you have
why-
to age for a while. That shit gets you fucked up. You don't have to drink very much of it, but
You age your eggnog.
yeah, because it's the actual egg yolk and stuff like that. It was from like my sister-in-law is from West Virginia and Tennessee, and so it was an actual like.
So it's actually chicken nog is what it is, because you've
Chicken
aged
nog,
it to the
yeah.
point where
Heyo.
no.
Yeah. Exactly.
Welcome to my humor. Alrighty, this has been another episode of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Again, thank you very much to Dr. Lauren Lichty, Drs. Kris Gowen for their engaging repartee on our show.
Your consultation with the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker has ended. You may pay your retainer at www.qsblaw.org. Please exit to the right of the water cooler and grab a candy from the front desk. We hope to see you again soon, but you need to leave now. I said leave. Why don't they listen? Get out! Get out!